Deep in the heart of the jungle, a movie review appears. Hey everyone, welcome back to Movies on the Brain. I'm Jason, and today we're slinging into something wild, wacky, and wonderfully self-aware. George of the Jungle, directed by Sam Wiseman, with Brendan Fraser, Leslie Mann, Thomas Hayden Church, and Richard Roundtree leading the charge, and a narrator who refuses to stay in the background. This film brings cartoon energy to live action chaos in the best way possible. So watch out for trees and hold on to your vines. This review's about to crash in. Georgia of the Jungle opened in theaters on July 16, 1997 with a budget of $55 million. During its 9-week theatrical run, it earned $105.2 million domestically and $69.2 million internationally, making a worldwide total of $174.4 million. Its opening weekend saw it earn $16.5 million, finishing in the box office as number 2, behind only Men in Black. Its final week in theater saw it earn $2.08 million, finishing its box office run at number 9. While touring Burundi with local guide Kwame and a trio of porters, San Francisco heiress Ursula Stanhope encounters her spoiled fiance Lyle Vandergroup, who wishes to take her home and has two hired poachers, Max and Thor, to track her down. Kwame tells the group of the White Ape, a local legend of a superhero primate that lives on Ape Mountain and rules the jungle. The next day, Ursula refuses to go home until she sees an ape, so Lyle enters the jungle to find them. The two encounter a lion, and Lyle knocks himself unconscious trying to flee. Ursula is saved by the White Ape, George. After taking Ursula to his treehouse home and caring for her, George introduces her to his three animal friends: Ape, the sapient talking gorilla who raised him; Shep, his pet African forest elephant who acts like a dog; and Tuki, a Toko toucan who gives him news involving the jungle's animals. George is smitten with Ursula and attempts to woo her. Ursula soon reciprocates his attraction, and her time spent with George makes her more fond of him. Lyle, Max, and Thor soon arrive at the treehouse, but Ursula berates Lyle for trying to abandon her during the lion attack. Max and Thor try to shoot Shep for his ivory, and Ape shouts at Shep to run. Everyone is stunned by the sight of the talking ape, and Max and Thor decide to tranquilize and capture him. George runs to stop them and is accidentally shot by Lyle, who thought the gun was his novelty lighter he planned to scare George with. Lyle is imprisoned after being identified as the shooter by the porters. Max and Thor are deported, but resolve to return to the treehouse to capture Ape and make a fortune off of him in Las Vegas. Meanwhile, Ursula takes George to San Francisco to get medical help for his gunshot wound and to show him the human world, which he has not seen since infancy. While Ursula is at work, George explores San Francisco on his own and uses his vine swinging skills to rescue a man whose paraglider had been caught on the suspension cables of the Bay Bridge. Ursula admits what happened in Africa to her parents and intends to break off the wedding, but her overbearing mother Beatrice objects. At a party intended to celebrate Ursula's engagement, Beatrice takes George aside. She tells him that Ursula's marriage to Lyle must proceed as planned and threatens to harm George if he interferes. In Burundi, Max and Thor tranquilize Ape before he falls unconscious and is captured. Ape sends Tuki to find George. Tuki flies to San Francisco and informs George of Ape's capture, forcing George to leave Ursula and return to Burundi. While confused by George's unexplained departure, Ursula realizes she loves George and goes to find him, despite her mother's protests. Max and Thor, having returned to the treehouse after getting turned around by a phony shortcut trail, are confronted by George. He fights and defeats them with the help from Ursula and the animals. Lyle then appears, revealed to have escaped prison and become a legally ordained minister, able to perform marriage ceremonies. Lyle has George subdued by a group of mercenaries and forcibly takes Ursula to a boat waiting on the Ape River to perform their marriage rites. However, the ceremony is interrupted by a series of harsh rapids that put them both in danger. George is rescued from the mercenaries with the help of Shape and the gorillas and swings in to reach Ursula and Lyle, but crashes painfully into a massive tree. As the tree falls over the river, George manages to pull Ursula to safety while the rapids lead Lyle into a dark cave. Lyle, thinking Ursula is still in the boat, proclaims their wedding vows, but to his horror, he discovers that he just married himself to a gorilla who kisses him. George and Ursula declare their love for each other and marry, with the people of San Francisco, Africa, and the jungle's animals in attendance. Sometime later, the two live in their treehouse and raise a son, George Jr., whom they present to the animals from atop Pride Rock, a parody of the cartoon The Lion King. A mid-credit scene shows that Ape has moved to Las Vegas and become a famous singer, with a humiliated Max and Thor forced to be a part of his performance. Now let's look at the cast and some of their other roles. Brendan Fraser as George. Other roles for Brendan Fraser include Rick in Crash, Farfel in 2024's Brothers, and Renee in Behind the Curtain of Night. Leslie Mann as Ursula Stanhope. Other roles for Leslie Mann include Debbie in Knocked Up, Lisa in Blockers, and Linda in Rio 1 and 2. Thomas Hayden Church as Lyle Vandergroup. Other roles for Thomas Hayden Church include Agent Stone in the TV show Twisted Metal, Grady in Crash Pad, and Jay Wilkins in Heaven is for Real. Richard Roundtree as Kwame. Other roles for Richard Roundtree include John Shaft in 1971's Shaft, Ben Burns in Speed Racer, and Ralph in Moving On. Greg Crutwell as Max. Other roles for Greg Crutwell include Alan Hopper in 2 Days in the Valley, Jeremy in Naked, and Patrolman Petars in Pretorius. Abraham Ben Ruby as Thor. Other roles for Abraham Ben Ruby include Big Bill Cochran in Rust, Lonnie Redshirt in Strange World, and the General in Big Hero 6. Holland Taylor as Beatrice Stanhope. Other roles for Holland Taylor include Professor Stromwell in Legally Blonde, Evelyn Harper in the TV show Two and a Half Men, and the Great Leader in Bill and Ted Face the Music. Kelly Morocco as Betsy. Other roles for Kelly Morocco include Linda Callowell in Newsbreak, Carol in The New Age, and Sybil in the TV show The Bold and the Beautiful. John Bennett Perry as Arthur Stanhope. Other roles for John Bennett Perry include Buster in Bob's New Suit, Senator Rutherford in Ground Control, and Michael Caswell in the TV show Paper Dolls. Abdoulaye Ngom as Kip. Other roles for Abdoulaye Ngom include Mufana in Bended, Father Shakalu in That's My Boy, and Stubbs in The Super. Michael China Murindi as Ndugo. Other roles for Michael China Murindi include Solari in the 2013 Tomb Raider video game, Edu in Curious George, and Isaac in the TV show The Young and the Restless. Lydell in Cheshire as Batake. Other roles for Lydell in Cheshire include RC and Ricochet, JC in Manic, and the Bouncer in Out of Sync. Willie Brown as Mayor Willie L. Brown Jr. Other roles for Willie Brown include Willie in Pig Hunt, Willie Brown in The Princess Diaries, and the Judge in Just One Night. John Cleese as Ape. Other roles for John Cleese include Bulldog in Planes, James in The Adventures of Pluto Nash, and Archie in A Fish Called Wanda. Keith Scott as the narrator. Other roles for Keith Scott include Bullwinkle in 2000's The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle, Diesel 10 in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, and Old Tom in the TV show Old Tom. You know, I really can't think of many movies that have an intro like this one does. It has its own theme song with lyrics and a title sequence. Keith Scott has hilarious comedic timing as the narrator, talking up George only to follow it up with he is unconscious. It actually got a chuckle out of me. Just from their first scene together, I'm loving the chemistry between Leslie Mann and Thomas Hayden Church. Richard Roundtree sure knows how to deliver a story on the urban legend, even while speaking with an accent. I love the breaking of the fourth wall with the characters on screen actually listening to the narrator and changing their reaction to Ape Mountain. The physical comedy every time George smacks into a tree and slides down. I can only imagine how hard it was for Brendan Fraser and everyone else to not laugh when it happened while filming. George commenting on on him fighting the lion is so funny. Brendan Fraser absolutely kills it as George. The design of George's treehouse is fantastic. The Tarzan wannabe line has to be a shot at Brendan Fraser not getting the role of Tarzan. If so, that's fantastic. The CGI for Shep doesn't hold up very well, but I'm loving everything about this entire interaction with Ursula and George. You could tell Leslie Mann and Brendan Fraser were having such a blast filming, and they have such great chemistry together. Ape showing George how to make Ursula his mate. In George's words, it was a fun scene. I know we're not supposed to like him, but man, Thomas Hayden Church is absolutely crushing it as Lyle. His voice really sells you on him being pompous. I'm really glad the physical comedy isn't just limited to George. Lyle always seems to trip, and for him to fall in elephant dung is comical. Thomas Hayden Church needs to do more roles like this. I never realized nearly half the entire film is set in the jungle, and that's crazy to me. Brendan Fraser's delivery on what his shower felt like was incredible, and to show Ursula and Betsy's reaction to him standing in Ursula's apartment naked is comical. I always liked seeing John Bennett Perry in movies, and I think he's the perfect casting to play Ursula's father. The shot of George standing on top of the Bay Bridge is easily the best shot in the entire film. I love the scene of George saving the paraglider only to get blown away while holding the parachute. Then for Ursula's mom to see George and Ursula hugging on TV, honestly, such a well shot scene. I've always loved when they do the fast talking to catch other characters in movies up to speed on what happened. Not sure why though. Great use of it when Ursula explains to her parents why she doesn't want to marry Lyle. John Bennett Perry loves playing the sympathetic father in movies, and Holland Taylor is absolutely crushes it as the overbearing mother. The score when Beatrice is telling George that he and Ursula are unfit for each other is phenomenal. And the way Holland Taylor gets more menacing with her words as the scene goes on is absolutely fantastic. When Beatrice makes the remark that Ursula is head over heels for George and Ursula realizes it, I love the shot of Arthur because he realizes she's in love with George as well. Great scene, and without John Bennett Perry saying only but a few words. I'd love to see how much Nike paid for the advertising of their shoes when George goes to save Ape. I love the fight choreography in the 2-on-1 fight with Max and Thor against George, and the effect of turning George's face is green when he sniffs his armpit is so good. It got a real good chuckle out of me. I'm really glad Beatrice comes around to George at the end, but man, the obvious cut to add George, Ursula, and George Jr. on a Pride Rock was so fantastic. I love this movie even when I was a kid. It's such a fantastic movie. Now, I couldn't find very many fun facts and trivia about this, but here is what I did find. Almost every element from the George of the Jungle cartoon series is included in this movie, even the never argue with the narrator line that shows up in Jay Ward's cartoons. Brendan Fraser's personal trainer for the film sued Fraser for not mentioning him in the credits. The trainer did not win the case. During a 2019 interview on Busy Tonight, co-star Leslie Mann confessed that she developed a real-life crush on Brendan Fraser during filming and ultimately fell in love with him. It was after seeing this film that director Stephen Sommers considered Brendan Fraser for the role of Rick O'Connell in The Mummy. Patrick Swayze and Robert Downey Jr. were considered for the role of Lyle Vandergroot. Jim Carrey, Chris O'Donnell, and Adam Sandler were considered for the role of George. Helen Hunt, Drew Barrymore, Cameron Diaz, and Alicia Silverstone were considered for the role of Ursula. And so our brave reviewer Jayson concludes his deep dive into George of the Jungle, a movie filled with laughs, finds, and more fourth wall breaks than reasonably necessary. Did he survive the experience? Yes. Will he return for the sequel? Maybe, if viewers demand it loudly enough. This has been Movies on the Brain. Tune in next time, same jungle time, same jungle channel.